Hey, it's Gregg Primm, Vice President of Global Marketing for GRC, that's Green Revolution Cooling, designers, manufacturers, and sellers of single-phase liquid immersion cooling systems for use in data centers. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the concerns data center operators may have about moving from traditional air-cooled data center cooling systems over to more sustainable liquid immersion cooling systems. Typically, when operators and designers look at choosing more sustainable new solutions, there are three general concerns they have. Typically, when you look at sustainable solutions, they often tend to be more expensive than what you're replacing them with. And then there also new systems tend to have more complexity and require additional training for teams than they're used to. And then finally, very often sustainable solutions are based on new technologies that may not have been properly tested or proven in the field over time. And what's really great is you look at the single-phase liquid immersion cooling systems from GRC, and none of these things apply. When you look at the cost of deploying an air-cooled data center, liquid cooling systems are just flat out much less expensive. As much as 50% less from a capital expense. And this is because the infrastructure necessary to liquid cooling is far, far less complex than what you see in a traditional air-cooled data center. Air-cooled data centers have all this ancillary infrastructure, in-row cooling and cracks, air handling systems, multiple backup generators that are all necessary to kind of make sure that air cooling system doesn't fail. But in a liquid cooling environment, none of those things are necessary, eliminating all the need for that cost. And then you add in the fact that by moving to liquid cooling, you can reduce your power consumption of the data center by up to 50%. Those savings are real. That pays for the system very often in a matter of months or a fairly short time. And then once your system's paid off, those savings just accrue over time and compound over time, go right to the bottom line. When you look at complexity, all right, so again, as we said, the last thing, the data center design perspective, it's a far less complex environment and infrastructure, meaning it has a lot fewer points of potential failure, a lot less things that need to be continuously serviced, managed, and monitored. And then when you look at the equipment itself, the servers, servicing the servers is no more complex, right? You can still remove one server at a time and service it without having to take the rest of the system down with it. It can be serviced right at the rack, no different than when you go to an air-cooled server. And it has the added benefit that because the servers are immersed in a fluid, the fans are removed from the servers, which is the number one cause of server failure. But then also the fluid that the servers are immersed in protects from all sorts of factors, vibration, condensation, static, dust, all these things that contribute to server failure over time. So as a result, servers that are immersed tend to require far less service in the first place. And of course there are some differences. I mean, we do recommend people wear gloves when they're servicing the equipment because you don't want to get oil on your clothes, or the fluid. It's not always an oil, but the fluid on your clothes. But otherwise, it doesn't actually present any new challenges. It's just different. But like our friends at Dell Technologies like to say, they like to think of it as it's same as air. And then finally, as far as the concerns around new technology supplanting something that's already there, immersion cooling isn't new. It's actually been in use in high technology, high tech applications for decades, going all the way back to the 70s and 80s, where IBM and Cray were using it for supercomputers. And then in terms of using dielectric fluids with electrical equipment, that dates all the way back to the beginning of the power grid. So the idea of using fluid to cool things is certainly not new. And then in terms of using it in the traditional data center, while there are a number of vendors who have entered this space fairly recently, GRC has been doing this for 12 plus years. We've got deployments out in the field that have been up and running and operational for over a decade. So there's really no concern whether it's a tested solution and whether it really plays well in the data center. So, when it comes to deploying liquid immersion cooling from GRC to make your data center more sustainable, the usual worries, they just don't apply. It's less expensive than air cooling infrastructure, basically pays for itself by reducing your power costs and your carbon footprint. It's far less complex, doesn't create new challenges for service and operations, and it's a tested, proven solution with systems deployed and operating for a decade or more. So, the bottom line, is liquid cooling from GRC isn't just good sustainability policy, it's good business. So if you'd like to talk with us more and learn a little bit more about how we can help you move to a more sustainable, efficient, and business friendly data center deployment, please give us a call. Thanks.